As we learned on the trip, the average Indian farm is still only about 2 acres in size. The government is also aggressively targeting biofuels as a lever to reduce its dependence on foreign oil. So one of the priorities of the trade mission was to really gain insight into the Indian market as the country works to ramp up its capacity to meet that increasing demand for both food and fuel. To that end, our delegation, I'm proud to say, signed 3 MOUs with several Indian businesses and agricultural organizations that are taking up this challenge, while also making it clear as we met with different groups that Iowa stands ready to help them fill in the gap. And on the private side, you'll hear shortly from an Iowa-based ag tech company, Power Pollen, which signed a letter of intent with India's VNR seed. You know, it's hard to really overstate the potential long-term impact of the Indian market on our farm families in our state. When you think about the expanding middle class and an overall economic growth rate of 8%, which puts India on pace to becoming the 3rd largest economy in the world by 2027. So India, can be an ideal partner for us for decades to come. And really to help capitalize on the opportunity, we were really fortunate to have with us not only a dynamic delegation, but Secretary of Agriculture, Mike Naig. I want to invite him to the, where's he at? Over here. Oh, but this way. Okay. I want to invite him to the podium to discuss some of his impressions of the trip and really its significance on Iowa agriculture. Mike?
Thank you. Well, thank you, Governor, and good afternoon. Thanks for your leadership on this really successful trade mission. And I do want to also extend my appreciation to Economic Development Authority Director Durham and your team, but also this entire delegation for stepping away from your day-to-day lives to go on this trip. And it truly did help to make this a very successful delegation, which Iowa has a long history of doing these things, going, meeting our customers around the world and doing analysis and learning about the places that we would like to do business. So Iowa and India already have many strong connections, as the governor referenced, but this trip only made more clear, how much opportunity we have to do significantly more. And I think we just kept coming back to that word, opportunity. Governor used a word early in the trip that I liked, that I thought described it really well, and that being vibrant. Vibrant in any way that you can imagine, and certainly an economy that's growing. So as their economy continues to grow, of course, India's consumers enjoy a higher standard of living, a rising middle class. That population needs more energy, more infrastructure, more transportation, improved and varied dietary options, including protein and so much more. And while India has a sizable agriculture, and they do, they are leaders in producing things like rice and cotton and wheat, dairy. Ultimately, though, their production cannot meet the demand that they will need long term. One example I like to use is they are both in terms of wheat and rice, they're the #1 producer by area. They're the #2 producer of those 2 commodities by total production, but they are 11 and 12 when it comes to yield of those crops. And so that shows you that productivity gap that they have. Dairy is another example, the largest dairy producer in the world, but their productivity is something like 26% of U.S. production. So again, you see this very large production, but their productivity and their yield leaves a gap. So India's increasing demand for clean energy sources like biofuels, ethanol, especially, and sustainable aviation fuel, as well as livestock feed demand, DDGs and soybean meal, but also high quality protein, pork, and yes, beef, turkey, eggs, soybean. This all aligns really well, in fact, seamlessly with what the Iowa farmer can supply. We also, of course, are leaders in manufacturing of equipment, livestock and crop genetics, precision ag tools, and other products and technology that they need. And yes, even though an average farm is something like 2 acres, those things can apply even in a place like India. And so there's a tremendous amount of opportunity. Cold chain, post-harvest losses, grain storage, those are all things that we do really well here, and they're challenges in the Indian economy. So we're also, of course, home to a world-class land-grant institution, Iowa State University, and other educational institutions, globally recognized agriculture companies, and we're certainly a leader in research and technology. So the possibilities to partner together to strengthen those connections, to build long-term business and research opportunities really are exciting, especially as India looks to solve some of their nutrition security and protein consumption demands that we certainly observe. So this trade mission strengthened that relationship with India. It also paves the way for new market opportunities for Iowa farmers and businesses. So this is, though, has to be a long-term approach. And I think that's the other thing we learned is that you'd better be prepared to make a dedicated effort and a sustained effort in this marketplace because it's busy, it's competitive, it's not always easy to do business there. We're learning those things, but we need to have a sustained effort. So, Governor, I just want to thank you again for leading this delegation and for everybody up here and those who aren't with us for taking time to go on the trip as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Nag, and thank you honestly for everything that you did to make our trade mission a success. I think he just laid out, in great detail, the opportunities that exist there. I even forgot some of the things that we talked about while we were over there because there's so many opportunities. So I just really appreciated having your expertise and leadership on the trip as well. You know, Dr. Borlaug isn't the only legacy of the Iowa-India partnership on food security and agriculture. Another really inspiring example is the Sehgal Foundation, and that's an Indian nonprofit focused on empowering rural communities that also has operations here in Des Moines. CEO Jay Sehgal kindly hosted us at his headquarters outside of Delhi, where we celebrated 25 years of his organization's incredible work. And we were just really grateful for him and his team's insight and hospitality. He put together an ag roundtable, and then he did it again with Mike and some of the other members of the delegation that weren't there for the first go-around. So it was just really helpful to have that insight at the beginning of the mission. So another highlight of the trip was the U.S.-India Business Council's Ideas Summit. And this is an annual conference that's really aimed at strengthening commercial ties between the United States, between our countries. And I had the opportunity to deliver a keynote address on the role that Iowa can play in strengthening those ties, in addition to letting us showcase our state to both U.S. and Indian CEOs on a major international stage. We later learned that my remarks, they was translated and shared with every member of the Indian Parliament. So we were excited that we were able to share that information with elected representatives. Also on the day of the summit, I had the opportunity to deliver remarks to the U.S. IBC board, which committed, I was excited about this, committed to organizing a delegation of Indian businesses to send to Iowa next year. So we're going to hold them accountable for that, and we're anxious to work with them to make that happen. The summit also gave us the chance to meet with government officials, including the Indian Minister of Food Processing, the Minister for Women and Child Development, as well as U.S. Ambassador Eric Garcetti, who warmly welcomed us to India. Really grateful to the ambassador and all the partners of the U.S. Embassy and Consulate for all that they did to support the trade mission. I also had the opportunity to speak with the Minister of Commerce, which led us to an opportunity for Secretary Nag and I to meet with representatives of from the Ministry of Ag and Farmers Welfare. So that happened during the meeting with the Secretary of Commerce, and we're happy that we were able to get that scheduled before we departed. And also, with the goal of continuing the dialogue, so we hopefully will have a delegation coming back, but we also invited all the ministerial officials I spoke with. We handed them an invitation to come back to Iowa, and we really highlighted the annual World Food Prize as an especially promising occasion for their visit. So we think there's some great synergy and great opportunities there as well. These ongoing relationships, both public and private, that's what a successful trade mission looks like. The interest from USIBC in sending a delegation to Iowa, I think it reflects kind of the broader success we had in pitching our state as a great place for Indian companies to expand. We hosted 2 trade and investment summits, one in Delhi and one in Mumbai, and I couldn't have been more pleased with the turnout, the discussion, the connections once again. At our first summit in Delhi, Camlin Fine Sciences, yes, they're an Indian-based company with operations right here in Iowa. They actually spoke at the summit, and he gave an incredible testimony about what it was like doing business in Iowa. They first invested in 2016, and he even talked about how much better the environment had gotten since he first invested in the state. And you know, we've attracted $28 billion in foreign investment since 2007. So again, a lot of opportunity to bring foreign direct investment back into the state. I joined Sid this morning with the Des Moines Partnership, and we actually were at Camlin, and we cut a ribbon on their new expanded facility. So not only did they invest in 2016, but they've already outgrown their original facility and have moved into a larger one. So that was incredible to see that happen and that quick turnaround as well. So to discuss kind of how the trade mission worked to foster more of this sort of investment between Iowa and India, I wanted to have Director Dern talk about kind of your perspective on the trade mission as well.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, and thank you, Governor, for this opportunity to share a few thoughts about our trade mission. So even though this was my second trip to India, I was still struck by the vibrancy of the culture there, the sights, the sounds, the warmth of the people, the food, which I absolutely love, and certainly the opportunities which we're here to talk about today. I was also reminded of how much our two geographies, Iowa and India, actually have in common, including our rich agricultural heritage and our strong emphasis on manufacturing. And as the world's largest democracy, India is an important international trade and investment partner, as already stated. But experiencing India's culture, our city centers, and industry firsthand really highlighted the opportunity for us to work together toward accomplishing some shared values. For example, India's government has accelerated the country's transition to higher blend ethanol fuel, we believe by 20%. It does not have a necessary feedstock in which to make that happen. We've heard a lot of different numbers. Meanwhile, Iowa has 40% of the U.S. ethanol production capacity, and our annual corn yields are more than double the global average. India also has committed to net zero emissions by the year 2070, a very aggressive goal considering where they are today, that will require an evolution in their chemical manufacturing sector, the sixth largest globally. And so given Iowa's significant biomass supply, robust bioprocessing infrastructure, and first in the nation renewable chemical production tax credit, there really is no better place to seize on the $100 billion and growing bio-based chemicals market than partnering with Iowa. Manufacturing is a significant contributor to GDP in India like it is here. But companies with operation in Iowa are better positioned to take advantage of advanced technologies and productivity thanks to our state's investment in Manufacturing 4.0 initiatives. And finally, the governor mentioned our shared interest in food security dating back to Norman Borlaug and the Green Revolution, and the continued need to improve access to high-quality nutrition. More than 7,000 patents were awarded for Iowa-based food and agricultural innovations between the year 2015 and 2022. Technology that helps our farmers and production companies in our state feed and fuel the world. Investments designed to further explore the application of these innovations in Iowa and India, as well as trade of high-quality livestock feed ingredients, animal proteins, and ethanol feedstocks could help us achieve our collective goals and shore up gaps in India's domestic supply chain. In short, I'm absolutely confident the new and longstanding opportunities brought about by this mission trip will ultimately mean greater business development and community investment prospects for Iowa and India as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. And just again, thank you for all the contributions that you and your team made to make this trip a success. And that same, that goes for all the members of our delegation whose role was not only to advocate for their own companies and organizations, but also to represent the entire state. And I can't say it enough. They just did such an outstanding job. So at this point, I wanted to give those that were able to join us this afternoon to maybe share a brief update on the values that the trip held for them. And I think you so.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon. My name is Kavi Chawla. I'm a senior advisor with Power Pollen. As the governor mentioned, we signed a letter of intent with VNR Seeds based in Chhattisgarh, India, to bring our technology to India for the first time. As you heard from Secretary Nag, India produces a lot of crops, a lot of rice, wheat, corn, yet their production per acre is terrible, right? So, and again, that's not a function of limitations of the Indian people, it's a matter of access to technology. So Power Pollen focuses on optimizing pollination systems. And so for us, it was a pleasure to be able to bring our technology to India for the first time to drive the second green revolution. Our mission is quite simple. Again, it's to feed and fuel the world. And our ability to accelerate that mission in large part is due to the ability to tap into the governor, Director Durham, and Secretary Nag's trip to India, as it truly served as a catalyst for us. Prior to the trip, we were talking to companies in India, but the trip enabled us to A, sign an LOI, and B, move 3 other conversations forward where, God willing, by the end of this year, we'll have more work to do in India. So again, thank you, Governor, thank you, Director Durham, and thank you to Secretary Nag. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Stu Swanson. I'm the farmer president of the Iowa Corn Growers Association. And while India was the latest trade mission that the governor organized and led, I want to thank her personally for all of the other missions that she has led in the past that have led to great trade agreements that have been beneficial to agriculture. And especially given the current situation in agriculture economically, it's important to continue to talk about these things, not only for my generation, but my children and grandchildren that will continue the farm afterwards. First, I'd like to thank India for being the 3rd largest ethanol importer of U.S. ethanol. And while they are not using U.S. ethanol to blend for fuel, we are backfilling the ethanol that they're producing in their own country to cover industrial needs. A short-term goal that I brought home from our trip to India was the need to try to advocate with the U.S. trade group to open markets for DDGs and soybean meal. I think this is a specific ask, especially from the memorandum of agreement that was signed with CLEFMA, that they're experiencing price inflation on their ingredients, and we can help address that. Longer term, I think we can continue to talk about acceptance of GM products. I think that will lead to the opportunity for U.S. corn to roll into the country, as well as help the Indian farmers increase their own production. I think we can work in collaboration, and I was excited to talk about things that are important to Iowans that were also important to people in India. And that includes water and soil conservation, nutrient management, renewable energy, and increasing the ethanol fuels blending. And finally, I want to recognize the farmer investors through their checkoff programs that have developed offices in India with the U.S. Grains Council and the U.S. Soybean Export Council. And it's great to know that those investments are working every day for farmers back here in Iowa. And again, I want to thank the governor for giving Iowa Corn the opportunity and myself to participate.
Hi, my name is Tom Dixon. I'm with Highline International, which is the world's oldest and largest primary breeder of egg-laying hens. It's based here in central Iowa, founded by Henry Wallace. So he's in the kind of a similar time as Borlaug and working with the Green Revolution, and proud to work for Highline International. And I just want to also thank Governor Reynolds, Secretary Mike Nag, and Debbie Durham from the Iowa Economic Association. Thanks for putting this together. It was great to go along as a private company. We're already involved in India, but it was a great opportunity to learn more kind of from a macroeconomic level, a political level, what is happening in India. And it really kind of the really interesting statistics, as it's the most populous nation in the world, growing at like 8% GDP. But we see with the egg and the poultry sectors even growing faster, maybe at a 10% rate. And its egg industry is larger than the U.S. industry. And we want to become more involved, help the Indian farmers produce cheaper egg protein for the Indian populace, which is under-consuming egg protein. So for me, for Highline International, it was just a great opportunity to learn more information about India, and also a great opportunity to travel with some great people from the state of Iowa in the other commodity organizations and government, and just a great experience. So thank you, Governor Reynolds and Secretary Nag and Debbie Durham. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Good afternoon. I'm Sid Jawarkar, Vice President of Economic Development for the Greater Des Moines Partnership. Firstly, I just want to thank Governor Reynolds, Secretary Nag, and Director Durham for the opportunity to join the delegation in India. It was truly a transformative experience for me, both personally and professionally. Personally, because I was born in India and I spent the first 15 years of my life there. And I remember moving to Iowa and experiencing Iowa as an Indian, falling in love with it, deciding to stay here. And then 30 years later, I got to experience India as an Iowan, which was truly a full circle moment for me. And one of the things that I see as opportunities for partnerships with Iowa and Indian companies is due to the cultural synergy that we have when it comes to work ethic and the commitment to sustainable agriculture and environmental stewardship. Iowa's experience with renewable energy, especially wind and biofuels, can provide the solutions that India is looking for with their energy challenges, especially in their rural areas. And opportunities for mutually beneficial partnerships are abound because of our agricultural knowledge and India's need for food security and agricultural production, which was mentioned before, and they are looking to modernize their farming practices. So from a cultural standpoint, I do believe that trips like this help build relationships in places like India, because India is one of those cultures where they do business with people they have personal relationships with. And that is what this trip was about, is forming the foundation to build on that relationship. And that's going to help our economic development recruitment efforts. And our pipeline of projects currently is as strong as it's been in years. And this morning's ribbon cutting with Cameron Fine Services was just an example of that. And that's just the first of many to come. So we'll continue to build on that, and we're ensuring the combined success of Iowa and the Greater Des Moines region. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Peter Tokar, President and CEO of the Quad City Chamber of Commerce and Grow Quad Cities Regional Economic Development Organization. And like all those before me, I'd like to applaud the Governor, Secretary, and Director Durham for putting this opportunity together. And the word has been said many times already, but the opportunity that has come out of this trade mission has been limitless. Just 3 days after landing back in the U.S., over in the Quad Cities, we were already hosting a business from India that we met on the trip on potential investment in the Quad Cities area. Quad Cities is a region of makers. We represent that economic development side that supports the ag industry. And so this was a great opportunity for us to look at foreign direct investment opportunities. How do we increase trade relations with India? And what new and innovative industries can we look to partner at to the future to diversify our economic base here in Iowa as well? So it was a pleasure to be part of this trip. I look forward to us hosting delegations too coming in. That's an exciting opportunity for us to be able to look at how do we increase those trade relations and really enhance that manufacturing and become more of a region of makers here in Iowa for the Quad Cities.
Okay, good. I want to make sure that we get everybody. Well, thank you all again for taking the time to join me, Secretary Nag, Debbie, on the trade mission. You know, as I think Mike talked about, it's a lot of logistics, it's time away from home and family, but I hope you agree that it was worth it. And I certainly could not have asked, again, for better people to share the experience with. So again, thanks. Finally, I want to close too by just thanking my team, both at the iGov and at Iowa Economic Development Authority. I know how much preparation and legwork goes into filling a 10-day trip with very productive meetings and events halfway across the world. And I could not be more grateful for the work. All of your work on the front end certainly was reflected on what happened on the ground in India, and just the caliber of meetings that we have. And to think that one of the businesses that we met with in the business-to-business relationship has already traveled to Iowa to look at a potential investment. And so it really pays off, and we're very fortunate to have you guys preparing us and getting us ready for the trip. So thank you. So with that, I think we'll open it up for questions on topic, and then we'll go off after I let them leave the room.
I don't know who wants to answer this, maybe Secretary Nag or Mr. Swanson, but how much of a barrier is their attitude toward genetically modified seeds? It looks like cotton is the only one approved.
Yeah. Do you want to take it? I mean, yeah. Patience is what
Yeah.
we're about.
Yeah, it's definitely.
You all know how well I do that.
It's
a little challenge.
That is definitely one of those barriers to for us to export corn and soybeans specifically. So when you look at it, yes, cotton is allowed, but it's that's a non-food crop, right? But they have shown some interest. Soybean. We talked about soybean meal and DDGs as being potential. Well, those are products that can't be cultivated, and so they have had a history of late when they needed feed ingredients, then they did allow some soybean meal in, even though it was biotech, it was GMO. So it's closed for that now. But I think that shows a willingness and certainly a recognition that when they need things like that, they will find ways to open it up. So that is one of the chief barriers to corn and soybean specific exports. But I think that the low-hanging fruit, if you want to call it that, is soybean meal and DDGs, that there has been already a history of seeing some progress there.
So some of the things we talked about when we met with the Secretary or Minister of Commerce and Ag is that maybe we could do a pilot project. So maybe I could find one of the rural states, and especially when it comes to either importing more ethanol into the system or corn that goes into ethanol production that wouldn't at this point go into the food supply chain, but would free up the feedstock that they have with sugarcane and transfer that to corn as a potential start. And it was so funny. I mean, they all recognize with a 1.4 billion population and growing, and really their initiatives to really become energy independent and look at renewables. At some point, they're going to have to transition. And, it just, crisis or whatever that looks like. But I think everybody we talk to with the roundtables or the businesses, in fact, we had that conversation this morning with Nirmal, with Camlin. It just, at some point, I think everybody recognizes that's going to have to be a part of the conversation. But maybe if we can find areas that we can start small and show, again, how we can be a partner. But with that size of a population and the middle class moving, that's still a great, great opportunity for our commodity groups.
This question is for the governor and Secretary of Ag, but also for any of the business leaders. A couple of weeks ago at a town hall event in Michigan, former President Donald Trump called India a very big abuser in terms of import tariffs, and he suggested that if he's reelected that he may impose reciprocal tariffs. And I'd like to know, first of all, is that a policy you would support? And also just how would that affect some of these relationships that you were working to?
Well, I'm not going to speculate on policy, and I think that's when you get in trouble, when you start speculating on what ifs. We went there to build relationships and to talk about how we could build on a rich history that started with Dr. Norman Borlaug 60 years ago. We have a relationship and we have a history of being a great partner. As I said, it's the two largest democracies in the world, and so we should respect each other, but we also want it to be free and fair trade. And so, whoever the next president is, that's a conversation that we need to have. Both sides can do better when it comes to trade, both. I don't think, my personal opinion, have done what we need to do to really provide opportunities for our commodities and for our businesses to grow and prosper. So, we're going to focus on what we can control, and that's getting back in Indy, that's hosting delegations here in our great state, so we can start to even understand each other better and look for solutions to some of the challenges that we know that they face. And it starts from the ground up. It starts farmer to farmer, commodity to commodity, mechanization, technology, technology transfer, all of that. You heard every person that stepped up to this podium and talked about what they experienced and the opportunities. I mean, the synergy is undeniable, and that's what it felt like when I was in a room with the Indian people that we were able to meet with. I don't know, Mike, if you want to talk about that.
I don't.
No, so no comment, Secretary?
No, I agree with the governor.
What's the name of the company that's been
Okay.
If you can keep a secret.
Say that. Yeah, you'll be the first to know. Okay.
So, could you say a little more about the three MOUs that you mentioned, and is there an expected economic impact to Iowa, or is it something
Well, I think, and actually the group is going to meet afterwards. So we've committed as a group to continue to meet to see what small steps can we take moving forward. So, what's the one with the feed? I mean, that's, I think, I can't think of the name of it. Clifma. So they agreed, and Farm Bureau, I witnessed Farm Bureau co-sign, to put a working group together, again, to look at how we move forward. So, that's kind of the collaboration, that we've talked about. You talked about additional potential opportunities just from the letter of intent and maybe other people that you were able to meet with. So and maybe Secretary wants to talk about this, but I know with the Minister of Ag, they talked about Iowa State and some memos of understanding that they had in place that had kind of expired, and that there may be some interest in, standing those back up. So it's just kind of laying out a willingness to continue the dialogue, to put a working group together so we make sure that that happens. And I'm committed to making sure that that happens. So, like I said, we want to bring groups back. We're hoping to kind of quick turnaround for this World Food Prize, but next year and then in 2026, we're hoping to bring a delegation of businesses over. But I can tell you, we'll be back. I'll be back. We're gonna go back next year because it can't be a one and done. This is something that we believe is the right thing to do for our state and for our farmers and manufacturers and biotechnology. We really can play a role in this. And if you believe that, you don't do a one and done. You get in there and you look for opportunities to connect. And so that's what we're going to be talking about over the next year and what that looks like moving forward. Yeah.
I would just say, and the theme of this trip was sort of play to our strengths, right? And so the connection with the folks that are feeding, that are in the business of feeding livestock or importing grain, the CLIFMA, relationship, that's a logical one. We've got similar type things that we work on with other, buyers in other places. The other, of course, the governor mentioned the business, business to business type, exploring those types of opportunities. But the other was around research, research institution, Terry. We visited there on the last day in Delhi. And, again, areas around innovation. And so, again, common areas of interest for all of us. So everything from transportation fuels to infrastructure to you name it. We got an extensive briefing that day, didn't we? On all of the things that they were working on. And everything from water quality to crop technology. I mean, all of the above. So I really do think that play to our strengths. It's about, working with the livestock and the grain folks, working with businesses, working on the research side of this equation. I mean, those are really, I think, areas of strength for us and areas that when you frame up with an MOU, then you're intentional about the next steps and staying in it.
Director Durham, this is sort of related.
Okay.
Sort of related.
Do I want to?
Sort of, but as you look at particular agricultural opportunities overseas, how are you viewing what's happening in our state? And do you think our economy will absorb these job losses on the ag side into other industries, or do you think those come back?
Well, first of all, I think they do eventually come back. I mean, we're in a cycle. But from what we've seen, the absorption of these existing jobs has actually been very strong. Now, I don't know how much longer that will go, but for right now, Dave, we're seeing people getting back to work very quickly.
I guess I'm thinking of a place like Perry, that's so much all concentrated in one smaller community.
Yeah, so it's interesting with Perry because what was there, close to, I think, 1,200 workers when it was said and done. When we finally got like zip code information, because that was important to us, I think I was surprised to see there were like 600 actually in Perry, which told me that they were there generational.
Yep.
So they were invested in the community. And though, we don't have detail because obviously confidentiality, we're just not seeing the uptake in unemployment that we thought we were going to see, which is telling me that they've been able to find those at least 600, I think, are able to find other jobs. The rest of them, I think, actually have been scattered. So, but we haven't seen, and we continue to work with Tyson as we do on any plant closing. I mean, obviously they're full control, but we are continuing to work with them on opportunities of somebody else that can come in partnership with the community at the same time.
And we just continue to increase yields year after year, regardless of too much rain, too much drought. I mean, we've got, with technology and hybrid seeds, we're just continuing to break yields. Our unemployment, I think, is 2.9. Dave, we're in the top 10 lowest in the country. I think the national rate is 4 something. And actually, people are on unemployment less than 9 weeks, and we lead the country in that as well. So to Debbie's point, we're not seeing that impact at some point if it continues, but that's again why we went to India, because we're looking for new markets. We're looking for opportunities for hog production, right, Pat? For corn and soy and everything that we just talked about. That's why we're there, because we're really good at, we're a powerhouse when it comes to production. And we need to not only nurture the markets that we have, but we need to continually be looking for new markets. And this is just an incredible opportunity for those markets.
No, I'm just going to say the mega bill has really helped us Thanksgiving needs, if you want to talk about that. Yeah. Yeah, and so, kind of playing on that, because regardless of what cycle we're in, we're constantly looking for new investments because economies ebb and flows. So I can tell you, in fact, Governor Reynolds got paid a tremendous compliment with one of the site selectors that we are obviously working on a big project that we, of course, we're working with several other states at this point. But they purposely chose Iowa for two reasons. The reason was how we've gotten our competitive house in order with all the tax cuts that we've done responsibly and the investments we've done in regulatory reform. But more importantly, passing that mega legislation was a game changer for us. So it is allowing us now to compete in projects that we were not allowed, that we were not even invited to participate. So whether it's traveling the world, looking for new opportunities like India, or whether it is constantly looking for new opportunities for existing companies to grow through acquisition or new leads. But I think that's significant.
Great point.
And to be clear, this one isn't yet to be announced that you already have or you're trying to.
We're trying to close the deal.
Okay. What was the name of that?
Now, can't.
Very good.
Another opportunity, and it was just like, so they could be a hub for sustainable aviation fuel, and they want to be in India, and ethanol is a feedstock for that. And so again, just the opportunity to lift them up and talk about them being a hub for sustainable aviation fuel, which we're all driving towards. Again, it's just an incredible opportunity for our commodities.
Governor, how do you, and Secretary Nagin, or if you'd like, Governor, how do you determine, how do you quantify whether a trip like this was successful? How do you, in your mind?
Yeah, well, I already feel that way. I'm just, we, to see Camlin here and expanding to hear them give the testimonial at the business summits that we've done. We've already had a business travel over here. So, it's continuing to look for wins. It's continuing to look for opportunities. It's hosting that business delegation. We're going to continue to connect with them and talk to them and make sure that that actually happens. That'll be a huge win because we got a great story to tell, and it's an opportunity for them to get on site and really see it. Also, we hope to bring some of the farmers and the producers here as well so they can take a look at the technology and how we've really made it better over the several years. We've come a long way with biofuels production and how we do it. We're much more efficient at that as well, and so they'll get an opportunity to start at a different point. But it's going back next year. It's like there's opportunities for sister state relationships. We're looking at that. There's a whole host of things that we're looking at that will kind of, as I said earlier, we're going to bring the group together, kind of again talk about what our next steps look like, and then it's following through with those next steps. And so we intend to do that. So maybe a year from now, we can give you another report in and update, or maybe not. Hopefully it won't be that long. Hopefully we'll be giving you an update in a couple of months of some progress that we've seen, but we'll keep you posted.
Any more questions on the trade mission itself? Okay, we'll allow the delegation and Secretary to record leave.
Yeah.
This was my first time to India, yeah. So Governor Branstad had gone, oh gosh, I want to say, I think it was in our first term. I can't remember for sure, but it had been a while ago. So this time, they got out into the state and they were moving every night. So it was really a tough trip. This time we did a little bit differently to start with because we were learning. We had them come to us. So we held most of the meetings in Mumbai and Delhi at the hotel. And then that's why next trip we need to get out in some of the areas so we can get on the ground and really have conversation with the locals too, which is really important as well.
So where are you in this election?
Oh, well, we're gathering names. Okay, I probably won't do anything until after the election, really. I found out right before I left to go on the trade mission. I didn't have a lot of advance notice. And so, we just got back from that. We're catching up from that. But it will probably be and that's not that far away. So, but we're, putting the process together and doing what we need to be doing, and then we'll probably make that final decision after the election. We want to get it right, for not only for the team, but for Iowans, and so I want to be very thoughtful in how I do that.
Can you preview at all about what that process will look like?
No interviews, just, that's sit down with different people that you think might be a good partner and, ask the questions and talk about priorities and what they think it looks like and what are some of their visions for moving the state forward and what are some areas that they're interested in working on, what are they passionate about, how does that fit into what we're working on. I mean, it's a whole host of things like that.
This is a little bit off topic, on topic with just the press conference. Do you have any comment on the port workers strike and how it could impact Iowa farmers?
Well, it's going to impact all of us. I think they estimated $5 billion a day. That's the economic impact of it. And so, it's important that we have a president and vice presidents doing everything they can to get everybody to the table and to continue the conversation. I mean, I think it's a reflection again of what we've seen with the Harris-Biden inflation. I mean, that is what they are saying, that because of the inflation that they're experiencing, like every single family, across this country, every single Iowan, the cost of putting food on the table, putting gas in the car, the cost of owning a home, all has skyrocketed under the Biden-Harris administration. And yes, she owns it. She has been a part of that administration for the last nearly 4 years. And so they indicated that that's one of the reasons that they need additional money. So hopefully they can get this resolved sooner rather than later. When you take a look at what's happened with Helene and the devastation that that's caused to so many people and the impact and just trying to recover from that, and you take a look at what's happening in Israel right now, the world is on fire. And I'm not just saying it, it is on fire. We are so close to the next world war. It's scary what's happening, the chaos, crisis, the unrest, an open border. I mean, for gosh sakes, the amount of the increase in violent crimes and drug seizures and you name it, we're all dealing with it, deaths. So, something needs to change. And this is just another thing on the plate that they are responsible for it. According to the port workers, I mean, I'm repeating what they said. I'm not speculating. That's what they said. I think they tried to work a deal and they said they needed more because their cost of living is not keeping up with inflationary prices.
A few days ago, I spoke with a chronic pain patient who has been driving down regularly to Missouri to buy gummies because the new Iowa law doesn't allow the potency level that helps him deal with his pain. Of course, what he told me what he would prefer would be full legalization of marijuana. I assume that that's still off the table for you. But are you open to revising that law you signed earlier this year? He said he sees a lot of Iowa license plates in the parking lot when he's down in Missouri.
Yeah, well, and there's a lot that are being served here. I think I can get you the numbers if you're interested in it, the number of cards that have been issued so that they're eligible to get the cannabidiol medication that doesn't have any of the THC in it that gets you high. So no, I think all you need to do is look at the states that have legalized drugs and marijuana. If you want to see what not to do, there's some great examples in California and Oregon and Washington, and I think Colorado would be another great example of just what the outcomes look like. We don't have to guess what happens. Oh my gosh, well, let's look at the homeless, let's look at the drug overdose. Even Oregon is starting to repeal some of the things that they put in place. It started with legalization of marijuana, and then it went to hard drugs, and it's ridiculous. I mean, we're already having trouble with workforce. Can you imagine instituting that into the whole conversation as well? So no, we'll deal with, I'm not opposed to looking at that. We've looked at it before. We actually have a board. I don't make those decisions. We have a board that reviews those type of requests. And so they'll continue to do that and make recommendations based on what they think is the right thing to do. So.
Former President Trump proposed a 200% tariff on John Deere if he's reelected because they're moving some production to Mexico. Do you have any opinion on that? Do you think that would also bring these jobs back?
Well, again, I'm just not gonna comment on speculation. There's a lot of things going out there. Kamala Harris says she doesn't have anything to do with the border. She's the border czar. Says she doesn't have anything to do with the border. She wants to start over. She's talking about, inflation like it was Trump's problem. She's been the vice president for the last 4 years, not Trump. I think I can't take credit for this. I don't know if I wrote this down someplace, but I thought it was so great. They said the Vance and Trump are running on Trump's record of success, where you have Waltz and Harris running from Biden-Harris' record of failure. I don't think you can say it any better than that. So, you know, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. People just need to pay attention. People need to look at what's been happening for the last 4 years. I honestly, never in my lifetime did I believe that I would see decline in this great country that I've seen over the last 4 years. And Iowans are resilient, Americans are resilient, we'll be able to come back. But I literally don't know if that's possible, if we have another 4 years of what we've just experienced over the last 4. You know, we're lucky, we're still doing okay, but at some point, you know, you can't. You know, you just can't continue to put up that wall and not be impacted by taxing unrealized gains, increasing the corporate tax. Let's just send all those businesses offshore. You know, we're trying to bring them back here in Iowa. We've got China, you've got Russia, you've got Ukraine, you've got Israel, you've got Iran, you've got Mexico. I mean, the open border. You know, it's a lot. It's a lot.
But, no, you just said you can't comment on Trump's tariff because it's not a thing, it's speculation. But what you just said at the end is Harris's plans. That's also speculation.
Well, no, I said there's a lot of it. No, it's not speculation. That's what we've been living for the last, are you kidding? Inflation isn't speculation. An open border isn't speculation. Oh, well, okay, yeah. He wants to cut taxes. That's his speculation too, so now I'm even.
We're seeing a lot of Iowa schools dealing with more school threats, kids bringing guns to school. And the Governor's School Safety Bureau has said that tips are up. I was just curious if you have a response to that and if you've had a chance to talk with them.
So Commissioner Baines has updated the team, and I think they have been very encouraged by an increase in tips through that hotline, the Safe and Sound hotline, through the app. So it's anonymous, and so we just want to make sure that all of the school districts are aware of it, that parents are aware of it. So we'll continue to do the marketing for that, because getting on the front side is the best way to do it. I mean, you can have resource officers, you can have a really quick response time, but seconds really matter in these situations. And so this is just, I think it's a good tool in the toolbox. It's another thing that we need to do. And they're meeting and talking about some of the other things that they need to look at from the legislation that was passed last year, the governor's school safety committee. And so hopefully we'll get some data, concrete data, when they do that report out to the legislature in, I think it's December.
Time for just one more, guys.
Will the outcome of the ballot measure on governor succession impact who you appoint as lieutenant governor?
No, that was a different case. So the code is very clear right now that if the lieutenant governor leaves the position, I have the authority to appoint a new lieutenant governor. But this was the case where I stepped in as lieutenant governor to fill the role, and it was vague. I mean, at first, I think Attorney General Miller said I did, and then changed his position on that. And so, therefore, just because it is somewhat gray, we decided it was somewhat gray, I decided not to push it. That's why we've tried to clarify it in the Constitution, that if the lieutenant governor does step in to the governor's role, for instance, if the governor got appointed to be the ambassador to China, then the lieutenant governor now serving as the governor would be able to appoint a lieutenant governor. So it doesn't have any impact. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.